Hey folks, Brian here. I just wanted to put a disclaimer right at the top of this episode because we are talking about the Netflix series Baby Reindeer this week. First of all, there have been a few developments regarding this show that have happened in the days since we recorded this episode that will go unaddressed here. Also, I wanted you to know that if you are unaware, Baby Reindeer is a show about stalking that also includes pretty frank depictions of rape, sexual assault, and transphobia. And if you don't want to hear us sit around and talking just as frankly about those subjects, we'll see you next week. All right? Okay. Curtain up.
See, here in Scotland, we are a big fan of Robert Burns.
Oh, yes, we love this Robert Burns.
My love is like a red rose, as we like to believe, wearing my tartan.
So I got laid off this week.
Oh, yeah.
That's sort of the big update from here. You two can stay in
Okay.
Scotland if you want.
Yeah,
but,
I was doing my bit about an average Scottish guy, but yeah, real shit, real life just happened to you,
no,
Josh.
real life just happened to me.
This
Broadway-
company was acquired by authentic Scottish company.
Right. And they decided, I was unwilling to relocate to the main office in
They
Glasgow.
kicked
and
you
so
in your bully big.
I had, so this week, again, being my first now week of, fun employment, I spent quite a bit of time posting out about how, yes, I am now laid off. And so, seeking new income streams.
As we know from your appearance on Fruitless, you've also been spending enough time drinking and going to karaoke.
That's
which
true.
Are necessary activities.
Necessary
They're
activities.
pastime activities.
I love
much
the-
like eating seeds in that regard.
I love the Fruitless podcast. It is my favorite.
It is
of the
my favorite
American
to listen to when I am tossing caber.
So the other
playing round of golf.
I had a number of people ask me if I got laid off from the podcast.
That's funny. I really like the idea that you've been made redundant.
We are
Like,
downsizing.
it's like entirely over email. It's like, come clean out your desk.
Pick up your Gokus.
We're not making getting laid off kind of money.
No.
Like it would. I think we'd use more informal language, like fuck out of here.
Fuck off money.
Yeah.
Not laid off.
We're not
but
getting
fucked
fuck off money either.
No,
We're
You're
doing okay.
I'm just getting told to fuck off.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast that will tell you to fuck off. I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I am the worst of all possible Scottish
come on.
AJs.
and I am worst of all possible. Accent going crazy now.
We're all
Brian.
over the place. I'm going to do my level best to reel this in because
Yeah.
we have
To rein this in?
maybe because today we are talking about the Netflix original series Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
Which has been quite the viral sensation over the past few
Yeah,
weeks.
it's really been taken off. I just start seeing a bunch of people talking about this. Theater people on the Facebook websites. And then other people in our lives on like Twitter, and it just sounded like this is not a typical show.
Yeah.
Not even an atypical show. It's a show that's just never been made before.
And particularly as regards like Netflix originals, we don't oftentimes talk about brand new stuff on the podcast. And then
and
certainly
we
not.
held off for a while because of the strike and everything,
right,
but
right.
like it's also just not really what we do. Yeah.
Well, no, because like these days, a lot of the stuff that comes out on Netflix especially is purely content. I think I was texting you, Brian, as I was watching this and being like, because you suggested that we watch it, obviously,
Yeah.
and I think I texted you like I was just expecting content. I was not expecting art. I was frankly, relative to my expectations, blown away. And I think there's going to be a lot for us to talk about in terms of the show, how it was made, and also how the narrative presented in the show sort of lines up with reality.
The thing about Netflix is that there is a lot of art on it. It's just buried in a deluge of other content,
Right.
so that anything that like can shine like Baby Reindeer, and it's actually the fact that it's been as successful as it is kind of a miracle.
Yeah,
like that it did
Netflix
like rise
is really
above the
pushing
noise.
this thing in the same way that it was like, oh, Squid Game has made 20 million content eyeballs on
buckaroos.
screen units.
Yeah. I love my eyeball screen
So
units.
this is successful,
ESUs, baby.
successful enough that they're pushing the idea that it's the most successful show ever made, or whatever their usual thing. It's like it's number one now.
Right.
I have no idea what any of these metrics actually mean. You know,
No.
when you talk about a box office, you know, there's money involved. There's an exchange. You know,
Yeah.
money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Nielsen ratings are taken from surveys, and then it's an estimation of the number of people who have watched the thing
Right.
on that half hour or whatever.
But then Amazon says that like Rings of Power had 25 million people watch its pilot episode, and now it says its Fallout has gotten like what 65 million in 2
Well,
weeks. And it's like, but what does that mean?
And that's
Yeah.
the thing is that they will have like a set of numbers that they will use for, I guess, spin and publicity purposes. But the metrics themselves are not clear cut and objective in the way that, as you were saying, AJ box office, or as you were saying, Brian, Nielsen numbers are.
Things involving outside agencies, because there's an incentive to report on box office,
Right.
and also Nielsen is about how you sell advertisements. Streaming doesn't operate on those terms.
Right. And this was
we're taking the company straight at their word. Sorry.
And this was a major issue of contention in the most recent round of labor strikes, right?
Yeah.
We saw this with the WGA and SAG, where
Yeah.
both of them wanted to get proper residuals. But the thing about residuals, of course, is that they're calculated based on a true number of like, this is how many eyeballs it got in front of and for what period
Yeah.
of time. And it certainly seems that the metrics are such that if you were to really do that kind of thing, it would no longer be profitable for these companies because they're not really turning very much of a profit at all to begin with.
I mean, if at all, like
No.
truly, like
The thing is, no one has money. No one has ever had money. Everyone is just lying to you through your TV screen. You need to throw it in the trash. You need to throw it in the trash can and then plug it back in because it tells you the truth when it's partially covered by trash cans. Something about the plastic, the polymers.
this is Brian's conspiracy corner.
By the way, did you know that history only goes back 1,300 years? Everything you thought was the Romans? Turks.
Oh.
Actually, just
Whoa,
Turks.
and that future society with all the apples way back in the day.
Oh, the
you know?
future society in the past.
Yeah. Like the futuristic society in the past that had all the apples, but then they've been trying to cover it up for all these years, going
I
back
don't
to
know-
Eden.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, this is the Assassin's Creed lore. Did no one else get up on the Assassin's
okay.
Creed lore?
No.
Yeah, the
I mean,
Templars have been keeping you down for a long time.
I know that
my
apples
friends.
come from Kazakhstan. That's a true thing.
Okay.
Yeah, apples have
that's
their
nice.
origin on the steppes.
So just a little bit here. We're going to keep it sort of intentionally light here because throughout this episode, we are going to be talking a lot about the character that he portrays, who
Yeah.
is almost him, but not quite.
It's an autobiographical show. The opening text, right after the sort of teaser scene in the first episode, says, not this is based on a true story, but this is a true story. This has been kind of a popular shift to make with text these days. It doesn't even say the names have been changed, although they have. Even the name of the author is changed within the story to illustrate a fiction. But it is a fiction very closely tied with the history of Richard Gadd as it was about for the last 14 years.
And just in terms of what a little bit of that history is, Richard Gadd grew up in Scotland and then ended up attending Oxford School of Drama in 2012. And from there, he was able to obviously make connections in the world of theater and drama, so forth, and did what many enterprising young actors do, which of course is go right to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So starting in 2013, he started performing solo shows annually. And at the festival, he kind of developed a reputation for being kind of like an anti-comedian, like intentionally cheesy, bad,
like an
over-the-top
Andy Kaufman
jokes.
type.
Yeah. And
great.
this led to the development of a show called Baby Reindeer. Oh, and this was just a play about a stalker that he had. Took this show to the Edinburgh Fringe in 2019, and it was a massive success.
Yeah.
Ended up transferring to London into a smaller off-West End venue. It actually won an Olivier Award for Outstanding Achievement at an affiliate theater.
Yep.
And it was going to transfer to the West End, to, the main commercial stages of London. But, that was going to be at the beginning of 2020. And something happened at the beginning of 2020.
That's right.
The election was stolen
From Bernie Sanders in Iowa.
Yes. Oh, we're back. Okay, we're back
Right,
to
it's the
level.
beginning of 2020,
Oh, right,
not
right.
the end of 2020.
I see. Where the others.
Yeah,
elections
where Bernie
still happen.
Sanders' best friend, Donald Trump, was then also betrayed by Joe Biden.
That's
Sometimes
right.
they kiss.
Everybody betray me. I fed up with this world.
Yeah.
Did either of you hear anything about it in its like original incarnations on stage? Or
so do not keep up with British theater.
okay.
Yeah, me neither.
all.
I mean, it is interesting. Like the stuff that permeates is usually the stuff that like transfers to St. Anne's Warehouse, which is where this probably would have gone.
Yeah.
Or
Something
like the
like it, yeah.
Armory, you know,
Yeah.
somewhere like that sort of houses those transfers. So
I think they overall have a healthier theater
Yes.
scene than we do, and part of that is the Edinburgh Fringe. We don't have.
sure.
We have Fringe festivals over here,
But it's not like Edinburgh. That's
none
like
of them are like Edinburgh.
The
I mean,
thing. Yeah.
New York's Fringe is probably the worst one out of the American ones entirely because it's not really a Fringe festival. It's all like monopolized. And British TV has drawn a lot from the Edinburgh
Yes.
Fringe. We talked about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. That
Yes.
started out with Fringe shows. We talked about in that same episode, The Mighty Boosh also started as Fringe. But then, of
Right.
course, you know, you have, I don't know, a worse economic situation coming along, austerity and things like that. Shows are getting smaller across the board in the theater in the entire, I don't know, Anglophone world. And that means that the Fringe Festival, you get a lot more emphasis on solo shows.
Right.
The really interesting artists
Right.
are like maybe one person putting something together. And from those solo shows, we get stuff like, Fleabag gets made. This wasn't at Edinburgh, but Chewing Gum Dreams by Michaela Cole
Right.
was a solo show that went around, performed a bit, and then got made into a 2-series Chewing Gum on BBC. And Michaela Cole then goes on from that to I May Destroy You,
Right.
which is about the experience that she had being raped while making chewing gum.
Okay.
This show is subject to a pretty big bidding war, I guess, of sorts. She pitches it around and a lot of people are trying to take it. And
Yeah.
famously, because she talks about it publicly, Netflix made a very insulting deal to her about like how the rights would be retained, the kind of royalties that she would get, the kind of money that she would get up front, everything like that. It ends up going to HBO. HBO does it.
That's right. Yeah.
So Netflix, and Amazon Prime is doing international distribution for Fleabag.
Right.
So Netflix is looking for its thing. It's looking
Right.
for its like solo show
And
to be adapted into a series.
preferably, a show with some Brit vibes, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do wonder because when that bidding war was happening, Netflix was kind of unassailable. Like that was during like Stranger Things at its
0%
peak.
interest. I mean,
Yep.
this is 2020. Or 2019 even,
Yeah.
because the show came out in 2020. Netflix couldn't fall. Like it was just continuing to ascend beyond the stratosphere.
In December of 2020, Deadline reports that Netflix is adding 7 new original scripted series to their slate in the UK.
That is a whole batch
A
right there.
proper batch. And one of the shows that is going to be picked up as part of this deal is Baby Reindeer. The buzz from the Edinburgh Fringe and, of course, the transfer, both the intended one and the one that didn't work out, were so strong that they were interested in taking a flyer on the show and on Richard Gadd, and they put it into production. Now, again, this is back in 2020. This show was in development for not quite 4 years, but like 3 and change, right? Because December of 2020 through to April of 2024 when it's released.
It is a long time because this is not a COVID production.
Right.
This is not something where like if you can see the behind the scenes footage, it's not people wearing masks. It's not, the kind of awkward staging that you see in a lot of stuff that's made in 2021. This is something that took some time to write, to adapt from a solo show into a scripted series with 7 episodes.
This is 7 episodes that are each a half hour and change.
Yeah. And since it's Netflix, of course, like, one episode is 45 minutes long. Yeah.
As compared, of course, to the original show, which is 80 minutes. Baby Reindeer is
The whole
a
thing.
tight 80-minute play.
Yeah.
If you go on Netflix's site, they have statistics, and I put heavy air quotes around that.
Do they really?
Yeah. Well, if you look,
They have some numbers they like
have
to
some
show
numbers.
you. Yeah.
Here's some numbers. And one of the numbers says that
42. Whoa.
No, it's literally that. Like from April 22 to 28, it says there were 22 million views. What does that mean? I
Right.
don't.
Ooh,
what
that's
is-
some good
what is a
ESUs right
view?
there.
Those are ESUs.
I mean, you go to Netflix, it's going to be at the top of the Netflix page, no matter what. Which is crazy considering like it's a very intense show. There's a lot of subject matter going on here.
There's a lot of subject matter, but it also plays into something that Netflix is very good at, which is true crime. And we'll get into how that, has sort of perhaps backfired on this show a little bit later, but it is very interesting to note that like the audience for Netflix is already primed to watch a show like this because they've been watching documentaries that are vaguely similar but don't necessarily have the art that
this does not begin with Richard Gadd getting into a very soft chair in the middle of a living room while we see hair and makeup.
And you hear somebody go sound speed. Click.
You've got the director in the back, like who's just like, okay, so we're gonna ask you a little bit about like it's the fucking same format for all of this shit.
And they're just like, so when did you escape the cult?
Yeah, it's like it's whether it's a cult,
the title card is
whether
like,
it's a murder,
horrible.
Whether it's Beanie Baby investments. This is the house style for this kind of documentary.
Thankfully, this is not that. This is not a documentary. This is a scripted, fictitious series based on a true story. Yeah. And we're going to talk now about the show. Of note, we are not going to be like explicitly, as we often do on the show, go like beat by beat by beat through the whole thing. We're going to be taking a bit of a higher level look at a lot of it. And
we're going to take the high road.
That's right.
And I'll take the low road.
Where they go low.
And we'll be in Scotland for ye.
Oh, Lord.
We're Highlanders.
We sure are.
Three of us.
We sure are.
There can only be one.
So Baby Reindeer begins with our protagonist named Donnie. That's right, folks. His name is not Richard.
No, it's not Richard Gadd. It's Donnie Dunn. Same number of syllables, and you got the little double consonant.
But it's a different guy going to a police station to try to get help with a problem he's been facing.
I would like to report something. How does it work?
What would you like to report?
I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm getting stalked.
By a man or a woman?
A woman.
And have you had a sexual relationship with this woman?
No, I haven't. She's a bit older than me.
Age is generally not a factor we consider.
No, of course, I can assure you, though, I absolutely haven't.
Okay, look, you say this woman's stalking you?
Yeah, she comes to my work, she comes to my house. She sends me emails, like all the time.
Are any threatening towards you?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, let me just open up a random one here.
It says, I just had an egg.
I wouldn't say that's particularly threatening.
Look, they're in here somewhere, okay? I just need to sift through all of the... Look, I'm really worried here. I think she needs help.
So this is the cold open for the first episode. It's also like the teaser for the show. This is the thing that you see on the social media sites for Baby Reindeer. It presents you with a very clear sense that you're not being told everything, right? He could play this scene exactly the same way with exactly the same script, but make it seem as though, okay, this is a guy who has a stalker. But when you're watching it, you're like, he's being weird. He's being really shifty here. It's like he is... This first scene, if you know nothing else about the show, it seems like you could be watching him doing like a Gone Girl or something. He's setting something up against somebody else.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. He did an interview with the Times where he talks about how, the police, if you're a man being stalked by a woman, that like they don't necessarily take you as seriously. And I think it's very interesting that in the show, that's never really a factor that's brought up much. Like in this scene, it's just like, is it a man or a woman who's stalking you? And he's like a woman, and there's no recognition that that's be like, oh, well, I mean, aren't you lucky? Which would be the normal police response.
Yeah, no, in general, I would say that the police are presented as being pretty competent.
With some notable exceptions.
I don't know about competent, because they seem pretty unhelpful for the most part until he says like the right magic words.
True.
But so many times they leave him up to his devices. He has to sort through the emails and then show the ones that say, I'm going to hurt you or whatever.
But to be fair, a big piece of that is that as he sort of presents the character of Donnie here, like you were saying, he's a shifty and weird guy.
Yeah.
Like the police sort of...
Very intense.
The police see him, and I think sort of on impulse, they don't tend to take him seriously because he isn't coming across as somebody who should be taken seriously.
He did show them an email that says, I just made an egg.
I just had an egg. Exactly. Yeah.
So then we get our first proper introduction to the stalker, right? We meet Martha herself, who is played by Jessica Gunning, who is incredible in this show. I think that this role could so easily be melodramatic or like lean one one or the other, but truly at different times when you watch her, she is either incredibly pitiful, someone like deserving of your empathy, an absolute monster, a violent sociopath, or like the saddest person in the whole world. And she somehow is able to shift in between those pretty effortlessly.
So what do you do?
I'm a lawyer.
How'd you get into that then?
Well, trained in criminal law. Moved to England, retrained, opened up my own practice, won several awards. Now a leading advisor to the government.
You own a law firm?
Amongst other things. A flat in Pimlico, overlooking a private garden. One in Bexley Heath, two in Belsize Park. God doesn't like a bragger, but when you're the go-to for the biggest political minds in the game, you've earned a brag or two. No, I'm not going to say who, so don't even go there. Fine, David Cameron, Nick Clegg, Alex Hammond, but you didn't hear that from me.
Wow. You must have amazing dinner parties. She had this incredible laugh, this giddy, slightly disconcerting laugh. Her name was...
Martha.
But all I could think was, if all of this is true, then why can't you afford a cup of tea?
So the way this does narration here is it's not like Chewing Gum or Fleabag where you have the actor looking at the camera. This is always your typical voiceover narration. This is not somebody who's smarter than the situation that he's in.
Right.
That's
Oh,
the sense you
sure.
get of someone who's talking to the camera. I know what's going on. I'm controlling this story, but this is not someone who is in control of his story, or at least he doesn't want you to feel as though he is.
And you still actually hear like the influence of the solo show in this narration. Like the opening line of "I felt sorry for her." That's the first thing I remember feeling.
Right.
Is such a great opener for a solo show. You
Yeah.
can actually picture like the Edinburgh like stage that he's on delivering that line.
So many
Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.